Welcome to the training. Thank you for showing up today. This is, I think, the fourth installment, Todd. Is that right? The fourth installment of Success Training on Thursday afternoons, 3 o'clock with yours truly, Matthew Pitts. I am happy to be here today. As I mentioned earlier, I am extremely excited because when I began this training process, I think I told you guys that I am not a travel agent trainer. I am a tour guide trainer. Like a travel agent can tell you where to go. Hey, you need to go here, submit, you go there, do that. Maybe they've never even been there before. They can tell you how to get there, but they've never been there. They don't have any experience. As opposed to a tour guide, not only does he know where he's taking you, he's been there a ton of times, but he knows it well enough to take you through and hold your hand and go through with you and show you the things that he has seen. I have gone through these. I've been involved in personal development on and off for about 20 years. The principles that I talk about are tried and true. They're success principles. They're laws of life, so to speak. And I do know that, like I said in the very beginning, if we begin to engage in these activities and we're intentional about the activities that we engage in each day, where that takes us, where we want to go, our dream, and we follow a few steps, we can find noticeable difference in a quick period of time. And I mean that predictable change in a quick period of time. And that's happened to me. It really is about that 30-day mark where you start changing an activity and it becomes a habit. And it really becomes ensconced in you. And that's kind of where I am right now. So I'm very, very excited to kind of be walking through this. And I have a vision of where I want it to go. And to be honest with you, I didn't draw that vision out of the air. It's somewhat selfishly motivated, things that I want to accomplish. And I'm reading a book that I've never read before. And I'm also reading through a book that I have read before. So it's a little bit of, there's a lot going on, but I think it's a lot like when you're sometimes you're dehydrated and you don't know it till you become thirsty. And I heard that when you become thirsty, you're already dehydrated, right? It's already happened. But how good does the water taste once we begin to hydrate ourselves and we feel better? That's what this is to me. It's like living water. So I hope that it works for you. I do know that one of the things that's different about my training now as opposed to the past is there was a method because of the personal interaction. There was a method for some accountability, which is why, and I'll go through it again, we talk about writing our goals down and sharing those goals with others. That's for that accountability. That's so someone else knows what your commitments are and someone else can look and say, hey, dude, you're not doing what you told me you were going to do. Giving people permission to hold us accountable to our dreams and goals. And for me, that's my personal trainer, my wife, and my kids. So I did create goals, as I think I told you guys. I even put it on the wallpaper on my phone, just so I'm reminded every day. But first, let's go ahead and review a little bit, right? Some of you guys may not have been here in the first one. These are all recorded. They're edited, and some things are done to them so they don't come out right away. But Leandro does a very good job, and we're tightening and refining our system to make sure that we get the link to him at an early stage so that he can begin to do that and publish this training, what you're watching right now, in short fashion. And I would say that short fashion is probably 2 days, 3 days. So if you haven't watched, it's not like, mathematics in elementary school and middle school, how it builds on another, but there is some methodology and some chronology that I'm focusing on as we walk through this. So let me just review really quickly. First, and I told you in the beginning, you've got to be enthusiastic about your life. You've got to be enthusiastic about what you're doing. You've got to find a way to become enthusiastic every day you wake up. And I know that's easier said than done. And I know that some of you guys are going, oh, Pitts, I mean, that sounds great, but how do you do that? That's kind of what we went through. So how do we find enthusiasm in life? And there, please go back to lesson 1, and you can see a far more detailed description of how we actually do find enthusiasm in our life, But the way to be enthusiastic at a very high, simple level is to have a dream. And I say simple. When I say simple, I don't mean unimportant. I mean extremely important to have a dream, have a vision of where you want to go. And when I say have a dream, have a goal, have a vision, understand that the vision can't be money, right? It can't be the dollar. It can't be a house. It can't be something that's shallow like that. It's like money's great. There's nothing wrong with money, but what will that provide you, right? Does money, everyone is unique on what they call success in their life, right? Whether, and when I talk about success, it's personal, it's spiritual, it's business, it's relationally. I mean, I'm talking holistically. I'm not just talking about CBD biocare, and I'm not just talking about business. But as we begin to identify what that looks like. What does the money provide? Is it a better education for your kids? Is it security for your wife? Is it more security for your retirement? Is it just to, have fun on the weekends? What does it produce for you that you want in your life? For me, Catherine's been on 5 missions trips, and we're, blessed enough to be able to fund that ministry. And we're able to give, and we're able to take vacations and experience, have experiences together. My son is able to be in travel ball, and he has a private swing coach with the guy that trains professional ball players here, an amazing guy that actually played with Yogi Berra, for you, those of you who know who I'm talking about. Catherine being able to take dance and just being able to provide those things, that was the goal for me, right? It wasn't money. It wasn't a dollar amount. It wasn't a revenue amount for our business. Although we have those goals in our business, I'm talking about from a life standpoint. What are you looking for? Dare to dream, dare to think big. I mean, just identify where you want to go. And you might say, well, Matthew, I don't like it. It's not that clear. I mean, I kind of see it, but I don't. That's okay. It becomes more clear the further down the path you go, right? So once you begin to take action, engage in activities to get you there, all of a sudden the picture becomes more in focus, right? As you move down the path. So what will it take to get you there? What's the most important thing? We talked about that in 2. How do you identify, yeah, okay, Matthew, my mind is right. I'm ready to go. I got my vision. I'm ready to get active. I'm ready to, so what do you do? That's lesson 2. It's more, how do you take action? How do you really put one foot in front of the other? And we reflected on Eat That Frog by Brian Kelly, where he talks about, how you prioritize the things in your life and the activities you want to engage in. And I would say this, there's again, go to 2 if you want to get more specifics, but there's a litmus test that we need to use when we're engaging in activities. And that is, once you've established where you want to go, does that activity help you to get there? And I got a great example from my life. We talked in session 2 about time quadrants, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where we want to be is in that important but not urgent place, right? That's where we do our planning and our meditating and our praying. If you're a person of faith, that's where we build relationships. That's where we personally develop, both, from a reading and neurological development, but also the physical and the spiritual. It's where you get the oil change in your car, right? You get the oil change so that the car doesn't break down, and you end up in quadrant 1, which is important and urgent. So in the interest of identifying how and what we are supposed to do each day, it's basically based on that litmus test, which is it getting me where I wanted to go? So for my story, I play golf 3 times a week: Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, and then Friday. Well, in the previous season, that amount of golf served me in quadrant 2. It was part of my rest and leisure time, right? That's also there. We need that, right? But now we need to, like, our business is kind of moving, and we've got to pivot, and we're entering a season of a lot more work, right? There's ebbs and flows. So now all of a sudden, playing golf 3 times a week isn't helping me get where I want to go in this season of my life. I hope that makes sense. So I'm eliminating that. I think I mentioned to my staff today that, I like to drink when I play golf. I love having some beers and getting loose with my buddies. I mean, that's part of the fun, but for 30 days, I'm not going to drink. And it's so that I can get my physical balance, right? And get my body at a level. And it serves me for where I want to go. I'm not saying you have to do that by any means, but identify activities that you're engaged in your life that are friction points from where you want to go. I mean, I told you guys a long time ago, I got rid of Twitter. And that's because when I'm scrolling through Twitter, if I analyze that, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. It's negative. I get it. I don't post, but I like to see what's going on. And I've tailored mine to where it was better. Like there was one, the World of Science, and some really cool organizations you can follow. But the point is, there was no intrinsic value to me. It wasn't serving even in a microtesimal way of getting me any closer to where I wanted to go. So it requires some discipline, but that's the point of creating goals, because you can look at them. So I said that before: create goals, Make sure the goals cause you to go where you want to go, get you closer to your dream or vision, and make sure your goals have a beginning and end date. There's a few rules: beginning and end date. Make sure you write them down. I typed them just so I could share them with people. My personal trainer, my wife, and my kids but definitely write them. There's power of it going through the hand and the pen. There's a neurological effect that I won't go into, but write it down and then share it with somebody and give them permission to hold you accountable. And the last thing, don't make it performance driven goals. If, in the beginning, I always start with activity goals because I can control my activity. Like to make 100 dials, we'll get 2 sales today. Well, I don't know, maybe I can, maybe I can. And, I know I know that I can make 100 dials, right? I know that I can engage in an activity. That's my choice, attitude, activity, the choices we have. So I would start with writing your goals down, plan the work. And then obviously the next thing is to work the plan. So that's kind of the review. I won't do that every time. In fact, moving on from this session, we're going to kind of do a different format that I think it might thin out the crowd a little bit, but I hope a lot of you will participate in it. Again, I'm going to do it as a travel guide. I'll tell you about that later. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do for today's training, but I always, back in even my public speaking days, I would create an outline of kind of the message that I wanted to give. But a lot of times I was asked to go speak by an organization, and I'd go there and spend the day, right? Like usually the speaking times are in the evening. That's kind of when the speakers come up. But I would be able to fly in or drive in and kind of be around that organization, or be around maybe it was my organization, and be around other people from around the country. And it would create a content that was so real and organic, right? Because I was there. So I always, in any speaking I do, I'm very well prepared, don't get me wrong, but I go in with an open mind because there may be something more relevant, more organic, more appropriate once I get there. So I woke up today and I saw a video by a friend of mine. He's my personal trainer, Matt O'Brien. And I want to tell you, association is so powerful. Please, please, please get around people that better you. Please do that. This guy does it for me. He would tell you that I do it for him. It's definitely almost always a two-way street when it comes to that. But anyway, he had a video this morning he did, and I don't know if he taped it this morning, but it's when I saw it. And it was a live that he did from his truck while he was not driving. And the teaser was, you can make one decision. You're one decision away from changing your life. And he starts it by saying, and I think he kind of went down the intuitive track where it's like, I'm going to decide to be a better father, right? I'm going to decide to be a better employee, a better boss, a better spouse, a better brother, husband, father, sister, friend, neighbor, whatever. I'm going to decide to work harder. I'm going to decide to, write my goals down. All those would definitely help get you where you want to go if there's discipline behind the decision. But what he was talking about, and I love this, and this became the topic of kind of the training and what I want to focus on today, and that is making a decision not to be a victim. Man, how powerful that was. I used to speak on that all the time about how we have the tendency to give away the power and dominion we have in our own lives. And what I mean by that is the minute we accept that we're a victim, that our circumstance causes us to be a victim because of outer circumstances or other people, is the minute you lose the power to change your life. A victim cannot change their life. You have to have dominion. You can't be residing in victimhood. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, let me give you an example. Back in the day when we were doing a lot of hiring and recruiting, it was right at the back end of that recession. And I know the recession hurt a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. Like COVID now, I know it hurts a lot of people. I'm tipping like 80% to servers and, frequenting local businesses, really doing, because I'm a business owner here and we're active members of our local community. So it matters the impact that it has. So hear my heart on this. I'm not saying that the circumstance isn't tough, but I am saying that anytime there's a circumstance like that, when there's a tragedy in our company, most long-term wealth is built like that. Look at Bezos right now. Look at Apple right now. Look at Target right now. They had their highest revenue quarter in the history of the company, 80% profit. I just read that this morning. I mean, in the middle of a COVID. So there's two responses that we have. Oh my gosh, the situation is so bad. There's no way do you see how that just removes us from any problem solving, from any activity engagement that would cause you don't engage the problem solving portion of your mind when we receive that we're a victim. Oh, I'm like this because my parents were like that. I was born in a broken, it is broken, but alcoholic, horrible home. There's an old saying, they talked to two young men from the hood, right? And one was very successful and one was not. And they went to the one that was not, and they said, hey, what happened to you? Why we're not able to be successful? And he said, because I grew up in a broken home. I was abused. I was around gangs. We were poor. I had a single mother. And then they have another guy who was very successful, grew up in the same hood. And they say, hey, why are you successful? How did you make it out here? And he goes, I grew up in a broken home. I was abused. I have a single mother. I mean, the same reasons he used to get himself out as motivation, this guy used as an excuse. So his message was, whatever hand you're dealt, you have, his thing is, it's ownership. Take ownership. And he did a little thing, and this is a controlled group, so I can say his thing is own your shit. Ownership. Now I can't say it. Ownership. I'm going to tell you a few stories about how I learned this, and I'm going to appeal to you intellectually, not as to manipulate you, because I really want you to believe what I'm telling you and buy into this. I was in a meeting one time, and a guy was saying he was bad-mouthing his wife, which, first of all, men, please don't bad-mouth your wives. Talk about an activity where nothing good comes from it, Todd. Talk about an activity that's going to take you places you don't want to go. Guy was bad-mouthing his wife. Wife wasn't there, right? Meeting, big guys meeting. My wife this, she that, she there, pushing my buttons. She's always pushing my buttons. And he kept saying pushing my buttons. And he finally sat down and shut up. And some dude in the back of the room goes, you need better button covers. You see how when he says that his wife pushes his buttons, he might as well, he has no dominion. He has no control. He's like, look, there's a button and it's available. And if somebody pushes it, then it causes me to do this. That's broken thinking. And I know it's intuitive. I'm not saying it's crazy. I'm not saying it's out there. That's like how we were born thinking that way. And it's just broken thinking. Let me appeal to you this way. If somebody comes up to you and they're conveying an idea to you in a language you don't understand. So if somebody came up to me and started talking, Spanish to me, I know a little bit of Spanish, Italian, French. Anyway, you don't understand what they're saying because you can't give meaning to the sound that's coming out of their mouth. At that point, it's just sound, right? It's a frequency of sound. It's like the Peanuts teacher. Wah, wah. You don't know what it means. You can't put meaning to it. So if we all agree to that, then that means it's up to us to put meaning to the words that we hear. So say now that someone says something to you in a language you do understand, it's only a frequency of sound until you give it meaning, until we give it meaning. So yeah, we need better button covers. Take responsibility and ownership for everything. What can we control? If my marriage has friction, what can I control? I can't control my spouse, but that's the intuitive mechanism. If only they would stop doing this, if only she would stop doing this, if only he would be like this. And that's broken thinking. That is saying that my whole well-being and my future is completely predicated on whether this guy starts saying something, she begins to do this, stops doing that. That is bad thinking. And I think once you put it in perspective, at least for me, once I put it in perspective like that, it just seems so simple. But I know it's not. I know when somebody says something offensive to us, the knee-jerk reaction is to repay evil with evil. But I'm asking you to analyze that activity that I know you've engaged in, because we all have. Did that produce a productive result for you? That's the way I want us to start thinking. That's the way We had a big meeting in our staff today about how we're going, and we already are, but we're going to be massively intentional about taking ownership of how we think, of how we perceive things, of the definition and the meaning we put on the sounds that are coming in our life. And we want dominion, we want authority over our attitude and over our actions. And the reality is we have it. We have it until we give it away. It's not like you're born without it and you got to go get it. We have the authority to make the decisions and to do the things that we want to in our life, but we give it away by being a victim. Don't be a victim. Analyze what you're putting on social media. Is it productive, getting you where you want to go? Let me ask you this. How many people, and obviously answer for yourself, there's no way to answer, nor do I know. But how many people have watched all the trainings and show up to all the lives and study our tools and watch our training videos and have gone through our knowledge base, engaged in activities that we know are going to produce a positive result? The challenge that, and I said it the other day on the live, when you begin to investigate very successful people and you begin to investigate very impoverished or unsuccessful people, there are so many similarities in both. They're all unique, don't get me wrong, but there's some similarities that just seem to show up in almost all of them, right? Some more than others, some traits and similarities more than others, but there's one trait, there's one thing that every single person who is successful has in common. One thing. It may be more, but I know of this one thing. They didn't quit. They didn't quit. You can't quit and be successful, right? So as I begin to examine people that are successful and I see some of these things and people that are unsuccessful too. I mean, victimhood is one of those things that is a part of just about every lack of success story. Victimhood. Oh, if only. Oh, I wish this. Oh, I wish that. So the question then becomes, if we can take authority through our activities and understand, are these activities producing a great result? I was talking to Todd. I was like, sometimes we go out after work and we'll go down to this bowling alley that's got horse collar. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's like a game. And we'll have a beer or two, and that serves in our quadrant 2. It's building relationships. It's leisure, activity, competition. It serves to strengthen us in that quadrant 2. It is important to have times of leisure. It is important to engage in a hobby that you like. But now if we were to stay there and do shots until 3 a.m, we would find ourselves well outside of quadrant 2 and into probably quadrant 4, unimportant and unurgent, and probably be in trouble with our spouses. So, right, it's like you can engage in an activity for a certain period of time, and then sooner or later that activity becomes counterproductive to where we want to go. The example that I gave was the golfing, right? 3 times a week. In this season, it's not the appropriate activity to get me where I want to go. So the question I want to ask you to ask yourselves, and I want you to take responsibility and know this, in every relationship, there's 2 people. There's never going to be a time when there's 2 people and all the responsibility falls on one person. Take some responsibility. Even if, and you may have a hard time buying into this, I hope you do, because I do, even if it's simply us being at the wrong place at the wrong time, we can own something. You have to. There's no way to get ahead in life, like Matt said, unless you take ownership and you take dominion and you take action on improving your life regardless of your circumstances, right? I mean, okay. So what is it in your life that you want? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get it, right? For those of you who said, yeah, I watched the training, but no, I haven't written my goals down. I haven't done this. I will say this, we all are going to be willing to sacrifice different things as unique as us. Certainly there are going to be some things that are going to be consistent. There's some things that we don't want to sacrifice. I mean, to me, it's health, right? Family, relationships. I don't want to sever a relationship to make a buck. That's just me, but you have to know what you're willing to sacrifice. And it nothing more. I can tell you this with all the assurity in the world. If nothing more, It's going to be your comfort. It's going to be my comfort. I am massively uncomfortable. I did a leg workout yesterday that I thought I didn't even think I was going to be able to walk today. I am doing things right now that I want to do because I see, even before the result, I know that engaging in this activity produces a good result for me in the long term. I just know it, right? I have experience, or I have a gut, or I have a good, you know, whatever you have to do to convince yourself that reading 15 to 20 minutes a day is going to change my life. Whatever you have to do to convince yourself that writing goals down, sharing them with somebody, engaging in activity, holding myself responsible, right? Taking ownership, letting other people hold me accountable, having a discipline. You know my definition of discipline, right? Engaging in an activity long after the emotion under which we decided to engage dissipates, because the novelty wears off, right? The first 3 or 4 days, no problem. Now it's like, all right, I got to look, I've got my goals on my sheet. So I have to look and be like, but now I'm 30 days in, I'm starting to see some results, right? It's like working out. It's like when I first start working out, if I haven't for a long time, it's almost like the fat separates from the muscle and hangs further. Like I look fatter, but I know it's working, right? I don't have a result like the farmer, right? How much does he or she work before they see the sprout, right? So that's where people quit. That's in that space. I've started here, but I don't see a result yet. I'm losing faith in the result. That's why association is so powerful. That's why taking responsibility is so powerful. That's why engaging in activity on a constant basis is so powerful, because if you can make it to where if you can do curls, I don't see nothing, I don't see nothing. You wake up one day and you're like, whoa, I got a little something there. Then it gets easier. But we have to get through that first part. And this is true for me too. Like I said, I'm walking through this with you. I'm not talking as the master, I'm the pupil. I just happen to have the script, right? That's it. But I am a pupil in this as much as you are. So how many of you have done that? How many of you have taken action? How many of you want something that you don't have? I would say right now, Todd, 25 people want something that they don't have. Why? Because you're here. You're here. You're sacrificing time to get some information that you believe can help you get where you want to go. That's what it's all about. I'm actually bringing sand to the beach here, Todd. I'm preaching to the choir, baby. No one. So if you are using an excuse, I'm kind of looking through my notes here. If you are using an excuse, identify what it is. Put it on the table. Write it down if you have to. Talk to the spouse, the friend, the brother, the sister, the mother, whatever. But identify it for what it is, and then take dominion of it. Right? It's not COVID. I mean, golly, if it's COVID, you know, I find myself in a thankful posture, because I could have taken this, Stacey and I could have taken this business any way we wanted to. And we opted for a full e-commerce model, right? And here we are in a world where we don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory in stores with doors that are locked in states that won't let them open them. So there's the perspective controls your reality. The reading and the being in a group and the being part of something bigger, taking dominion, having dreams, having goals written down in dream boards, it's all holistic and all get you in this mindset where it sets us up to win. You still have to have the discipline to get through it, and patience. Somebody asked me the other day, listen, we've had people come on and we've talked about it that made literally, this is real, I can document it, $400,000 in their first year with us. They have since gone on to do their own brand and so forth. So there are people, and those people that have that kind of traction when they first start up already have a big following, right? They're already online. They're, you know, they're nutritionalists, they're, you know, physical therapists. They already have a bunch of people that trust them. That's going to be, they already have a bunch of people who trust them. So they already have a connection with a lot of people, right? So we do have people that come in and they are massively successful right out of the gate. But most people who are trying it part-time or who want to do it full-time and believe in it and want to invest that's from spare time to part-time to full-time, you can make our model work. But what I'm saying is this is not a get-rich-quick model. I would never create a get-rich-quick model. Why? Because me personally, I don't trust things that I get quickly. Everything in my life that has come really quick could be or was most often lost really quickly. The things that matters to me take time. Relationships, trust, love, deep friendship. You know what I mean? Just those things take time. Integrity, the things that matter take time. Otherwise, the 10,000 hour rule wouldn't be in effect. Everything. So it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes the willingness to be out of comfort, out of your comfort zone, to embrace change. What I'm giving you is a roadmap. I've gone down it. I told my staff today I embraced a season of about a year where I really wasn't intentional about developing myself, y'all. And I mean that. And it's like I busted my ass for 5 years, really. I mean, just for 2 jobs to working this thing out of my garage. I mean, just growing and building. And it's like, man, I'm going to play golf. And I entered this season where I needed a refresher, but I stayed in the season a little bit too long, if that makes any sense. So now it's time for me to engage. And I've done this. It works. I told my staff, I forgot what got me to the dance. This is what got us here. This is the difference. There's only 2 ways you're going to beat anybody at anything. And that's either to outwork them or outthink them. The outworking anybody can do. How many people really focus on outthinking? Think about that. In your life, how many people do you know that are intentional about developing intentional, specific traits in their life to get somewhere and waking up every day with a purpose? How many people in your life? I would gamble to say it's a small percentage. Think about it. If we're a member of that small percentage, we got an advantage. We have an advantage, not only from a competitive standpoint, but I got a little bit emotional because when you begin to engage in these principles and really care about a bigger thing for other people, like our families and even ourselves, that's fine too. Man, your life becomes different. You got an edge. You're not running around in this rat race like everybody else. And that's what we're ultimately probably trying to achieve at some level, right? I would rather have this than this. And so I want to help us get there, and we are going to walk through this together. And to be honest with you, I think I said it a few trainings ago, one thing you need to know is people aren't interested in you. They're interested in themselves. I mean, I know that to get somewhere where I want to go, I got to help others get where they want to go. That's just it. I mean, we're re-interviewing our entire staff to reassess how they want to specifically grow so we can help them get there. So when we help them, they help us, right? Because they become more developed. Does that make sense? It's like it seems so simple to me, but it's kind of hard to live. You have to be massively intentional about it. So the point is that we're going to walk through this together. And I used to care how many numbers were there because I want my impact, my influence to be as great as it can. I usually engage in activities that cause multiplication factor as opposed to addition, hence the e-commerce in our business model. But I know that if we go through this and you actually engage, my question would be, so we're going to have a 5-week program, and I'm going to tell you about in a minute. If you go through the trainings that we've just gone through, the first 3 and this one, there are some action plans in there about writing goals and reading and sharing those goals and engaging in that activity and being disciplined to do it over a long period of time. And then engage in these 5 weeks with us. I will absolutely open a blog page and allow any one of you to explain how it hurt or helped you and how you are or are not different. And you would be amazed at how this works for the people who work it. And it's not me, it's these tried and true principles. So that's my plea to help hopefully and join in. But again, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. Right? I'm better for this. And I want to create an environment of people around me that have my value system, which is I want to grow. I want to be a better person. I know I can be a better father. I know I can be better for my wife. I know I can be better for my God. I know I can be better for my staff. I know I can be better for my employer. Well, I hope we all know that. If not, we can go to, self-esteem training and start learning truths about who we really are and start dispelling all the lies that we've been told by the haters and people that would cause to pull us down to the basement, right? So no one is responsible for my success or failure but me. Nobody. And the minute you say that and mean it, and the minute we say that and mean it, is the first step to really taking dominion of our own life. Because if you don't say it or you don't mean it, even more importantly, you have no effect on changing your life. You've given away your power. You've given away your authority. I remember, Todd, it was me and you when you worked at as the director of sales for the education for the college. We came out, you may or may not remember this. I remember it. I've actually trained on it before. I rolled you under the bus several times with this story.
Awesome.
Yeah. We were coming out. He used to work near where I lived, and we'd have lunch together. For those of you who don't know Todd, I met when I was 15. He actually drove me to high school before I could drive. So you talk about meaningful long-term relationships. We have one. So anyway, I go to have lunch with him. I meet him at his work because I'm working for myself. So I meet him at his work and I pick him up, and I jump in his car and we go to pull out, and there was a 4-way stop, Todd. So Todd pulls up. Sorry. Todd pulls up. Then somebody pulls here and they go, right? So the next thing, Todd should go next, right? The rule says Todd should go next. But the girl behind him skirted out and took advantage of it, right? And it went out of her turn. For 2 blocks, Todd, do you remember this? For 2 blocks, he was badmouth. He was red-faced and fired up. And finally, I go, Todd, that lady has totally affected your life and now mine, because I got to hear this crap. And she doesn't even know who you are. So that was in the middle of me doing this study about giving away our authority and letting some other person have dominion over my attitude. That little, man, I could go off and defend you, Todd. You don't take my friend's authority. Right, sorry. Oh, gosh, nobody's smiling at me. Okay, let's move on. Oh, my gosh, that was so funny. All right, so here's what we're going to do. It's 3:38. So I'll just talk about what I'm going to do in the future. I hope you join. If you don't, and it's not your thing, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I promise you. But I feel it in my spirit and certainly in my business sense that this is what we need to do. And this is what we're doing as a staff, right? I'm doing it. Stacy's doing it. The entire staff is doing what I'm going to suggest. I have read a lot of books in my life. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I stopped reading. Even my staff mentioned that they have noticed that I've stopped reading. And I would say, like I said, maybe about 8 months to a year ago. And I love reading, you guys. So it's a really weird thing. I mean, the only thing I can think of is it's easier not to. Some books that I read touch on topics that I really need work in a lot, right? We all have our strengths and our weaknesses, right? So this one here, one of the things that I think, one of the rare, traits that I think that I actually do have that help me is my ability to connect. Now, I was saying it earlier, like I do have an ability to connect with people. Like, have you ever met somebody? It's like, oh man, that guy's so charmed. He's so lucky. Everything always works out for him. It's kind of me, but it's more because, not because I'm lucky, but because I feel I know how to connect. I mean, think of Todd and I. We have almost a 40-year connection, or a 30-year connection, 35. Stacy's really good at connecting with everybody. It's a real gift that she has. I mean, I can't even tell you some of the stuff that people tell Stacy when they just meet her, like really deep interpersonal, stuff that no one would tell me in a lifetime of a relationship. And they tell Stacy right away. And that's because she's a great listener. She cares, and she's good at connecting with people. But I remember this book had a huge impact on me. So we are going to read through a book over the next 5 weeks, meaning every Thursday at 3. We're going to go over it. The way it's portioned out is there's like 3 chapters, 2, 2, 2, 1, or something like that. And it basically works out to about 50 pages per week. We're going to go through that. I'm going to actually open this up and use Todd, and we're going to play a little bit around with the technology so that we can get some interaction, so we can get some different perspective. And I'll talk a little bit before we get into the book about perspective and how it really is reality. That's a really deep debate when we start talking about if there's a difference between truth and reality and perspective, right? And how that bends and changes one's reality. The reality that I know and the perspective that I have is that when we go through this as a team, There are people out there with so many different backgrounds, different nature, different nurture, that I really, and I think I've told everybody, my favorite class in high school was debate. I really enjoy listening to the other side and getting an understanding of people's different background, cultures, family relationships, all that stuff. And I love the different perspective because it's their truth, right? And so anyway, I hope that we can provide an environment where we do get some different perspective on what we're reading. I've read this book before, and I told somebody today, it was Leandro. I said, I highlight, if you guys see, I highlight and mark up my books pretty good. This one, I actually must not have had a highlighter because all my stuff is underlined from the original read probably 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, about that, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But I'm highlighting different stuff, and the reality is I'm seeing different stuff. The book hasn't changed, I have. So that, going rereading of books aren't bad. But I am interested because even if my own personal perspective can change and perception can change on what I'm reading, how diverse and unique and exciting will it be to hear, an eclectic crowd's perspective on what they're reading and perception. So we're going to be doing that over the next 5 weeks. I will tell you right now, hold on just a second. I should have written it down. So this one is the first 3 chapters, which really is 47 pages. And then after that, it's 2 chapters it goes to 123. So, or excuse me. Yeah, 2 chapters goes to 96. So the first is 47. So it's almost like working out perfectly where it's 50-page increments. I'm not even kidding you. Leandro talked about maybe putting out a link. I would get a used book. I mean, you can get books that are used for like $1.99. Please don't spend a ton of money on a hardback. The only reason I got a hardback here, and I know this is pretty shameless, but I'm going to do it anyway, is because John signed it for me. I've had a couple of, seen him speak a few times, had lunch with him, like with a crowd, not like me and him at a 2-top. That'd be pretty cool though, wouldn't it, Todd? Yeah. Me and John Maxwell at a 2-top. So anyway, we'll put information out on this. Hopefully, Leandro, if you don't mind, search around for a few links. I don't have any relationship with the publisher or anything. I have nothing to gain by you buying this. I know that there are audiobooks too, and you can do a 30-day free trial with like Amazon, as long as you ticket to shut it off, and you get the first 30 days for free, and you can do this one, then you can listen to this for free. I like reading if you can. My dad's got Parkinson's. He can't read anymore, so he listens to the audiobooks. So audio is fine. But I hope you'll engage in this with us, you all. I hope you'll travel down the path of thank you, Todd. Todd's raising his hand, so I'm going to get to him. My hope and my prayer is, and again, remember what I told you, it's a cynical sounding thing to say, but I think if you really examine it, it's the truth. And that is, people aren't really interested in us in the beginning. Certainly, they're interested in themselves. I have a self-interest in this. I have a real self-interest with my staff because I know that when our team gets intentional on the thinking side of what we're doing, we're going to be even more unstoppable than we are now. But my prayer is that you will engage in these steps. And I'm going to appeal to both sides, right? So we might have somebody out there who says, man, I believe what Matthew's saying. I'm going to give him the benefit. I'm going to do it. And then you have some people out there who go, you know what? I don't think I believe what he's saying. I think he's full of crap. If you're on this side, let's make it happen. Trust me, it'll work. If you're on this side, prove me wrong. Like I said, I love debate. I love competition. If you give it the honest college try and you go through and you really do want to change and you actually activate these steps that we're going to do, I'd like to hear that it didn't positively impact your life. That's why I'm doing it. Again, there's no extra pay. Matter of fact, this is more work than I used to do. I didn't used to do these meetings. Todd, what do you got for me, buddy?
What's the name of that book again?
Oh, thank you. I need to really lean into this, Todd. I'm not good at this stuff. John, it's Everyone Communicates, Few Connect by John Maxwell. It's a very easy read, you all. It's not laborious at all. He does use sports references. So if you don't have any affiliation with sports, you might have a tougher time connecting with John in his book. But he is a very charming writer. I don't think you need to have those connection points to connect with him. I hope you'll like it. I find John's is part of a list of authors that I've really enjoyed over the years. I tend to lean more on John when I'm training because he is kind of an easy, conversational, charming type writer. So that's kind of why. Plus, I love his stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I would choose him over maybe Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek's a little bit more nitty gritty, a little bit more. And then I also read a book by called How Did That Happen? It was like this thick, and it was like I thought it was like a crummy job to get through that book and read through it. But I don't think any John Maxwell's like that. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Any questions, Todd? Any comments, cares, additions, concerns? Any questions you guys have before I shut her down? The neat thing about me doing this here is it's 3 o'clock here. I got here at 6:30 this morning. I got to tell you guys, I'm going to be honest. We're in a closed circuit. I can go ahead and be transparent, man. You asked Stacy if I'm different. You asked my staff if I'm different. I got here at 6:30 this morning. Man, I had a dip in my hip, a glide in my stride, Todd. I was ready to go. So now when this is over, because this is kind of tiring if you've ever done anything like this, it takes a lot out of you. So I like when this thing's over because I go home, Todd. That serves as an activity to get me where I want to go.
Quarter two.
Huh?
Get you to those quarter two activities.
Quarter two activity, man. Build relationships with my kids. All right. That's it, you all. Thank you so much for joining. I hope, and for those of you who watch this, thank you for sacrificing the time. Golly, it's the first step to changing your life, making a little sacrifice. I mean, to be honest with you, I love doing this, but I'd love to say, hey, there's 1,000 things I'd rather do. I actually really enjoy this. It's meaningful and making a difference in my life. Please go through those 3 if you haven't. Just engage, man. Just go through it. Just trust me or don't trust me and prove me wrong. Either way, I'm fine. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want to see you get through it. Hope you guys have
Dana's asking when are we starting the book? Is this an immediate activity that we want?
It's an immediate activity, and what we'll do, Dana, we're going to put it out today, 50 pages, and if you look at the print, like it's not fine at all. That shouldn't take, I mean, I typically read about 30, 35 pages an hour if I'm paying attention. So it shouldn't be more than an hour, 2 hours worth. We'll take it slow, Dana, though, because I know shipping might be a little weird because of COVID. Maybe people are getting their books late. So what we'll do is kind of play it by ear. My thing is like I'm an A type. So if there's a better way to do something, like when would I want to do it? Like right now. That's why I say if people like New Year's resolutions, when it's like in May and they go, hey, come January 1, I'm going to be doing this. Like if you want good money, good bet that it won't last more than a week. Because if they really wanted to do it, they'd do it that day. I mean, if they were really convinced that it would help them and change their life and they had the gumption, they would do it that day. So do it today, guys. Get out there today. What else you got, Toddy?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll have Leandro put a few links out there. Look for some used books. Don't spend a lot of money. I mean, I think even if you get it in a hardback, it's like $20 or something, but I wouldn't do that. Todd, I've lost my mouth. All right, you guys have a great one. Thank you.